And while that, okay, so we are live there. Now I'm waiting for this part.
I love this so much.
I do too. All right, we're going live in our community. And then now we're going to go live. I've never went live on Instagram, so this is the first time.
Oh, this is gonna be good. I love it.
Right? And it looks like as the bells are chiming. Okay, it looks like we are live.
Nice.
Yes, indeed. All right. We'll wait for some of our people to come in.
Okay.
There we go. Hi, Amanda. There's Alexis. Alexis says, this is amazing. Thank you. Well, welcome, everyone, and good evening, and welcome to our Elevating Conversations. I am your host, Sherry Sims, founder of Black Career Women's Network. And Black Career Women's Network, since 2012, we have been helping Black female professionals to help them to create the positive change they want to see in their careers. And our Elevating Voices is really more a conversation that we have around amazing women like Ashley, with them sharing their triumphs and their career journey, and this kind of really helping to inspire you along the way. And so, Ashley Du Bois, thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome.
Glad to have you. So, what I always love to do first, and we do this during our Career Tip Tuesdays, is I love for everyone to share where they are watching from, because we want to make sure our guests know, where you're watching from too. So, if you could share with us where you are watching from, that would be great. That way we can share that up on the screen. So I see Amanda and Alexis and Crystal. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. And Ashley is going to share a little bit more about who she is in just a moment. But hey, we want to know, where are you watching from? Where are you watching from? So let us know where you are. In the meantime, while we're waiting to hear that, oh, look at that. They're coming in.
They are. Come on, Atlanta. Hello there.
All right, Crystal's in Hammond, Connecticut, and Christy's in
South Carolina.
They are flying in here. I don't think I can keep up.
Wisconsin, Tennessee,
New Jersey, North Carolina, Kansas City. Oh, look at Taryn watching.
Hey, Cincinnati.
Tonight. All right, Makiba from Rhode Island, Portland, Oregon. We have Connecticut. Oh my goodness, Jasper, Florida. We have Columbus in the house right down the street. We're loving it. We have someone in the greater Boston area.
Boston. Yes.
Right? We have Chicago. And look at us from Canada. Somebody from Canada is in the house too. Hey, Desiree, how are you? Providence, Rhode Island, Stamford, Connecticut. Love it. Absolutely love it. Clearwater, Florida. Hi, Robin. Hey, Robin.
Hi, Robin.
Oh my gosh, Robin was a BCWN member, and she also attended both of our mentor summits here in Cincinnati and also the one in Atlanta. So we love that. Alexis says lots of New England. I know New England is in the house representing, aren't they, Alexis? I love it too. She said yes. Fresno was here. We love it.
Yeah.
Yes. She said, oh, you said my name right. Thank you. I know that name right is important, isn't it, Makiba? I love it. I love it. All right. So tonight, our elevating conversation, this gives us an opportunity for amazing women like Ashley to be able to share with us their career journey. So I want to start out first by having Ashley tell us a little bit about who she is and what she does. And we're going to have a conversation around her career journey. And I'm going to ask her some questions. Feel free to ask her questions, because you know how we do here at BCWN when we go LinkedIn Live. We are always asking great questions. So this is what I love about this. Alexa says, yes, there are sisters up here who need to hear this. Love it. We love it. We love it. So Ashley, tell our audience who you are and what you do.
So my name is Anthony Dubois. I am a Cincinnati native. The reason why I said Boston stand up, I am the only person in my family from Cincinnati. Everyone else is from Boston.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Love it.
Okay. I see why you said that now. Okay.
Down here, and it's been a good time. So we planted our roots here in Cincinnati, and I have absolutely loved it. I've had the opportunity to live all over the world, and I plan to continue to do so. Um, Currently, I serve as the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the Northern Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, which is very interesting. A lot of people who don't engage with chambers at all are like, what do you do? Short version, we sell influence. That is what I tell people. My job is to be a professional networker. And so being able to talk to people about where they are, how they feel seen, heard, and valued in each and every space, and then thinking about the demographics in which I have to do that work. So Kentucky is a commonwealth. It is not a state. We have 4 in the country left. In the Commonwealth, we have about 4 million people, but in Northern Kentucky, we have about 400,000. 350,000 of those people identify as white alone. Everything else is the 50,000, right? So you got Black, Hispanic, Asian, et cetera. And so when you think about those population demographics and how we have to move in those spaces, it looks different. I am the inaugural director in this position. So we've never had this before. And the first person of color, also the youngest person to hold the director role. And so when you have that intersectionality as an identity, it's a lot that you have to walk through. And so having people that I can pull on in the community, being able to lean on educational experiences and cultural experiences for being around the world is how I think I've been pretty successful. And I'm a natural relator. So I'm a strategist by heart. Like that is my number one strengths finder. But I am a relator. I love people. I love stories. I want to know everything about you. Like it's my thing. I love talking to people. And so being able to know where people are coming from, how they think, and being able to share stories that relate to them is also how I think I've been pretty successful in this role.
I love that. And I love that I have someone else I can talk to with DE and I about, right? Speaking that language. I love it. I absolutely love it. Alexis says, yes, we love to hear it. All right, so let's kind of get into it. So when we talk about, you and I kind of had a conversation earlier about career journeys and how sometimes they're just highs and lows, right? And there's no straight path to career success specifically for us Black women, that we just, if we're talking about success, we better be ready for the loops, for the peaks and valleys and really the unorganic way that we achieve success for a lot of us. And so I think what I want to know for you started your career out in higher education pretty much.
Correct.
You spent a long time in higher education. And I think sometimes, this could be to me, maybe a stereotype that we can bust that myth on when it comes to higher education. But it seems like a lot of times when someone gets into higher education, they stay in that field for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And so what was one of the career pivotal moments for you to make that shift? Because we always have women who are looking to change careers. They're looking to, try to figure out how can those skills be transferable to something completely different. And you were able to successfully do it.
Yeah.
I would say. So what was that pivotal moment for you where you said, look, I'm ready to make a change?
I took 2 pivots. So I will say that I wanted to be a college president. That was why I got into higher education. I felt like if I made it to the top, this is before knowing what they did, that I would be able to really change things from the top. People often talk about the C-suite, how they make all the decisions. I will tell you that is usually not true. And so when you talk about college presidents, I was thinking equitable access for every student to be able to get into any college that they want to. If we're talking about living out the MLK dream that we say every January, then we have to really make changes, right?
Right.
And then you get into higher ed and you realize that is not at all how that thing operates. And I said, okay. And so what I decided to do was, and when COVID hit, I said, how we are adjusting to students being acclimated to schools, universities, colleges. And COVID is not what I would want for any student. It's just really hard to adapt to college. And then you have to do it completely online, especially if that's not your learning style.
Yeah.
And so I wanted a pivot. But what I said was, I want something education adjacent, something where I get to work with leaders, but I'm not necessarily doing education, but still in the realm. So I was okay with being in the realm of education. And so I ended up taking a prevention job. So working with students and their families, I had someone else to do that, but the goal was to try to get students to not do drugs, right? Like
Mm,
not do drugs and
okay.
alcohol. So I took one pivot. In doing that, I was able to work with superintendents here in the region and their like elected designees. So now I'm
Mm.
working with a lot of leadership. In doing that, the Kentucky Department of Education said, hey, we see this thing that you're doing, but we think you could be doing something else. And so they asked me would I take this
Mm.
role as a like DEI regional director because the Commonwealth is set up in like regions. Would you
Okay.
take it over for Northern Kentucky? And so that was pivot number 2. I was like, all right. And so I was only in that job for 3 months. And I tell everyone, I only really got that job for my best friend. So my best friend was still in Texas.
Hmm.
She came to lunch with me, and a woman offered her my job in the Louisville region, and she took it.
Wow.
About a month after my best friend got that job, I went to lunch and they offered me a job at the chamber. And so I really wasn't looking to make the next pivot out of education. This one came to me because the conversation that I was having, I mean, you talked about this, was very intentional. My
Okay.
conversation was about making an intentional shift in our region. And if I was going to do that, was education the best place? While at lunch, someone said, no, you need to get into business. And there happens to be a role at the chamber. And I said,
Wow.
okay,
And
yep.
that's how, wow.
That's how I got here.
But but the one thing that I'm hearing from this that I think is key, you had the relationships.
Yes.
You had the relationships to make this
Yep.
happen, right? So kind of talk about relationships because you and I mean, you're what I consider, and I got this off of your LinkedIn page because and I love it. You're a connector, encourager, and speaker, right?
Yes.
And I do feel resonate so much with that with you.
Yeah.
So talk about the relationship building piece when it comes to your career because a lot of what just happened to you was based on relationships.
Yeah.
I feel.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, with that being said, what are some tips or advice you can give to some of our viewers around cultivating relationships and being very mindful and intentional
Yeah.
about being authentic in the relationships that you cultivate?
Yeah. And I'm going to take something from what you said on my podcast because it resonated with me so much. You have to know what lane you want to be in because
Yes.
that is going to form what relationship I'm going to need. Right. And
Agreed.
so when I thought about what work that I really want to do, I'm always talking about equity. That's where I live. Diversity is here. It's never going anywhere. But the equity part, we have to do some work on. Right. And
Mhm.
so those were all of my conversations. And when I teach a class as well to some of our teachers who will be entering into the field about multicultural education. And the first thing I always say is names can get difficult. But if
Yeah.
you can remember something about the person, then you can always circle back around and say, hey, how's your so and so? And so I do that in all my professional relationships. I try to get to know people and ask questions about something that I know I would be able to grasp. And then I can circle back around with them via email or a text and say, like, oh, well, hey, how's your husband? Or how was your dog? Or last time we talked, you were doing this. That thing is what makes people think, wow, like you really care. And I do, right? All of that information is extremely important to me, but it also helps to break down some of those barriers because when you get into some of these professional spaces, people are very apprehensive. Typically, you want something. If you want to build a relationship with me, you want something. And so I was very strategic. I don't just email people to email them. I'm not like, oh, hey, like, let's chat. I'm not doing that. It's more of, hey, can we go get coffee? And that's a very pointed conversation. Typically, I just want to glean information. Where, how'd you get there? What's your career goal? Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, all of
Right.
those real questions, because that is who the person is. What they do in their day job, I can probably Google, right?
Right.
Like, I can leave that to another conversation or listen to a podcast. But doing that research on a person to say, before I sit down with you, I should know some things. Before I sit down with you, I should have gone to your LinkedIn page and been like, well, at least let me look at what you're doing. So that we can have a conversation. But I'm very intentional about follow up and like follow through. I hate when people say, oh, I'll email you. And then 6 months go by and you never hear from them. It
Yeah.
drives me nuts, right? Because your word is all you have. And then your name becomes synonymous with everything that you do. And I'm
I
very
agree.
particular about where I put my name. And I'm also very particular about what my follow through looks like. So if I say I'm going to email you and connect with you, I'm going to email you and connect with you. Even if it's just to say, hey, here's my email, here's my cell phone number, if that's easier. Let's connect when you have time. I'm okay with that as well.
Yeah, I love that. And and what you just shared is it's simple, right?
Yeah.
So there's no major commitment behind it, but at least you never know when someone may think about you and say, you know what, gosh, they did send their email address and their phone number, and let me reach out now, right? And
Yeah.
so I love the simplicity of how you connect because
Yeah.
and like you said, without feeling like there's something, an agenda behind it. So I
Correct.
love that.
Yeah.
All right. So making this shift, making this pivot. Um, I always say that when we make these shifts, we're excited about these things. We set intentional goals.
Hmm.
Um, we may reach some milestones, things like that.
Yeah.
But there's always challenges along the way, right? So
Always.
with you, what has been, and I would say even let's talk, I kind of want to hear, what was your biggest challenge in the early parts of your career?
Okay.
And then when you made the shift into this new direction, what's been your biggest challenge?
Because I am young, I think being young, but
Mhm,
being wise, what people have always said, like, you're very wise. And I think it's because I'm very strategic. So I see things in like big picture and I'm just trying to connect the
mhm,
dots. Right. Like
right.
I'm a big sponge when I sit in a meeting. I'm like, oh, so that person knows that person can, oh, okay. Like I'm trying to connect all of the dots. Even if I
Mhm,
don't
like that
get
too. Yeah.
why, I
Mhm,
just need to connect the dots. And I've done that my entire career. I've had really phenomenal mentors though. And so oftentimes they would put me in rooms so that I can hear conversations. And then they would ask me, what did you hear when I walked out of the room? And so I think a lot of it was age. Also, my desire. I was a very, very, very ambitious young person. Like I wanted to be president by 30. I didn't understand why I could not be college president by 30. Um, and I had someone tell me, slow down and enjoy where you are because the higher you go, the more stressful it gets at the top.
mhm. Oh yeah, we talked about this earlier today.
And
New
I was like,
levels. Yeah, new levels, new levels of complications, new
"Ye"
level of challenges, all of those things.
and as
Absolutely.
much as the success goes on your name, so does every failure.
Mhm.
And I don't think I was ready for that younger, and I'm always grateful that the Lord did not allow me to get to that point, right? Um, and so that was challenging for me being ambitious and feeling like people stifled it. But then having really good mentors say, "We're not stifling you, we're protecting you." And so
I
I
love
had to
that.
be okay with that.
I love that.
Um, in the pivot, I think the hard part about sitting in business is that I'm as an educator, I think we lead with our hearts a little bit more than we might lead with our logical brains. So we're like,
Mhm.
oh, everyone should have some, and all the kids should have a snack. And they're like, nah, this is business. Like you pay for what you get, kind of thing.
Right.
And that was a shift for me because I could not understand why. And again, mentorship. I love books. That's why my cup says yes. I really do need all these books. Like I love to learn, but I'm also very curious. So I would ask other women, how do you navigate business? Because if I go ask a man, they're going to give me a manly answer, right? And I don't present like that. I'm not that. So genetically, we're not the same. And although I can glean their wisdom, I would go to some of the women who are CEOs of major corporations or directors, right? Or younger women and say, how are you navigating this? Especially if they weren't trained in business. And what I learned was that a lot of women got into business after they started a different career, maybe to
Mhm.
make money, and then they'll go back to their passion later on in life. And they've all been very forthcoming about the hurdle you go through when you aren't trained in business. It's a different part of your brain that you have to use.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because during and Makita's on here. Hey, Makita, which is my chief network officer. Her and I had our Career Tip Tuesday earlier today. Was called about preparing yourself for the next level, and we talk about that, about how when you are aspiring to see yourself in a certain level, position, whatever that is, how
Yeah.
you should be prepped or currently to
Yeah.
prepare yourself, because you may get there, but you may not stay there, or you may not be successful if you have not done the work prior to getting in the role. Specifically, if you are moving into a more higher level role of leadership, which requires
Correct.
a lot more of your skill sets and to be developed when it comes to
Yep.
emotional intelligence and conflict resolution and communication, presence, all of those things, right?
Yep.
So I like that you said that, because we sometimes we chase the money, but we're not prepared in other ways to stay in that place.
And there's a lot of people rooting on you to fail. and
Mhm.
especially as a Black woman.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so knowing when you get into these roles, I had the luxury of going to Miami University, and they offered alumni the opportunity to take a mini MBA course. And so I took it because I was like, I don't need to go get a full MBA. At this point, I don't need any more college debt, but I need to understand fundamentals of business if I'm
Mhm.
going to be in business. And so being able, it wasn't for me to have more letters behind my name. It wasn't because I needed some other shiny certificate. It was because I genuinely needed to understand what they were talking about. Because people will talk circles
Yeah.
around you and they will do it and won't think twice.
And I love how intentional you were about obtaining that, because I think what happens too with Black women that we want to go and get 3 degrees, thinking
Correct.
that's going to help to elevate us, and we're not being strategic about how to leverage the education that we are out there paying for.
Yeah.
Some of us have been savvy at doing that. So please do not go to hating on your sister on my timeline. Okay.
Right.
I'm just saying that it's true, is that we're not thinking about, leverage. We just think, okay, well, she's got 3 masters on her resume and thinking that's going to get you in. And that's not how it works.
Yeah.
So I do think I love how strategic and intentional you were about that. And you also were paying attention enough to what was going on in your space at work to take advantage of that opportunity to get that.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I hope
Absolutely.
more people will do that. We have a
Mhm.
ton of certificates. I know there are a ton of coaches out there that will help you and kind of sit down with you. But this goes back to understanding what lane do I want to be in. If I want to do DEI work, I mean, Cornell has a certificate, Miami has a certificate. At this point, every college has a certificate.
Yep.
Um, there are fundamentals that I think everyone should learn if you're going to get into this work, which is really hard. Um, but outside of this, what other thing do you couple that with? I would encourage people to look at workforce development. It's not going anywhere. We
Mhm.
need workforce. We need a workforce
Yeah.
advocacy. If you are good
Advocacy.
at
Mhm.
politics, right? That's why I'm a good relationship person. Everything that you do is relationships. You ever want to be a lobbyist? It's just a relationship job. But advocacy is how you get things in black and white. It is
Mhm.
how you get
And
the
I love
majority to
I love
listen.
when you talk about that piece, because I know how you talked about equity is your piece within this space. For me, it's the inclusion piece for me, where I'm like, I need you to behave and treat others with respect. Okay. This
Yes.
behavior, this behavior has got to stop, right? Can we treat people right? So that for me is, I think, my sweet spot when it comes to, if I really think about what is it that I enjoy the most about advocacy in the DE and I space, is that
Yeah.
it's the I. For me, it's about, are we treating people right? Because this is
Yeah.
how we end up having conversations about workplace trauma. Because
Exactly.
we're not treating people correctly.
Yeah.
So that's probably my jam right there in this space.
Hey,
I
we
love
all
it.
need them. I need somebody
We
on
all
the
need,
D,
yeah.
somebody on the I. It's a lot of
We
work
need
to go
somebody
around.
on the D. Yeah, we need somebody on all of these things. I think that it's important to talk about. So I know that because you're a big picture thinker, right? And so you're intentional, and young and youthful, right? I know you're thinking about the future. So,
Uh-huh.
do you think that what has been your biggest or your greatest triumph to this point in your career overall?
Um, I would have to say learning a very tough lesson is that ideally we want everyone to go with us, and everybody can't go. Um,
True.
but being coachable enough for someone to say that to me. And I
Mhm.
know I'm not hanging my hat on any accolade that I've gotten, and I appreciate those, but they're very trivial when it comes to day-to-day reality to me.
Yeah,
And having my COO tell me, I walked into his office and said, I think I need to be more coachable. And he said, I think you're correct. There are times where you have an insular circle. If you're in with me, I love you forever. I got your back. I'm riding for
Mhm.
you. You know what I mean? But if
Mhm.
you're not in that circle, you feel it. And I didn't realize how much people felt
Oh,
it until I
wow.
walked in his office and said, I think I need to be more coachable. And I could not tell you where that thought came from.
Mhm.
We sat
But
down and he pointed
I
it out.
love that, because in order to change, there has to be self awareness, right?
Yes.
And as a DEI professional, you have to have inclusive behaviors yourself, right?
Yes.
You have to be someone who is not displaying exclusionary behaviors. You know what I mean? So I love that because and that's one thing about being in this space. You do have to walk the walk
Every day.
every day, every day. So it's like, and sometimes I know I've had those, Sherry, check yourself moments, right? And being very mindful because if you're wanting to if you're campaigning and championing for all of these things in this space, you have to be that example for that.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
everyone assumes that, and I love, Issa Rae when she's like, I'm rooting for everybody Black. Everyone assumes that when we do DEI work, it's just for Black people. Like, oh, this
And
is
that's
just
not the case, right? It's not the case.
no, this is everyone.
And and I think that's why I love talking about intersectionality a lot because it gives people who are not minorities another lens to look
Correct.
through when it comes to understanding that there are disparities even in your own race,
Correct.
right? And so I think that's what I love about having those types of
Yeah.
conversations around
And
that.
allyship is extremely important, right?
Mhm.
And so when we
Yeah.
think about how to be an ally, and I'm doing a training on this for an organization here in the region soon. I always talk about the left-handed desk theory.
Mhm.
My mother's left-handed. It was a sin for people to be left-handed. It was for you got abused if you were left-handed. You were
Wow.
tortured if you were left-handed. That was a mental disorder if you were left-handed. How backwards was our country not many years ago? And now we give them a left-handed desk. We made left-handed scissors. We don't even think about it. But when you talk about being equitable and you talk about being inclusive, I tell people all the time, if we can make a desk for someone who writes on the left side, we can do this work. It's not a Black thing. It's not an Asian thing. This is a people thing. The work that I do is
Mhm.
asking more than can a wheelchair fit in here? Do you have someone who can do sign language if you have more than 100 people in the room? Because someone is probably hard of hearing, even if they didn't
Mhm.
acknowledge. Or is the letters big enough? Are the
Yep.
colors work? Like
I
this
love
is
that.
everyone work. This is not Black people work. This is for
Mhm.
all
Help
people.
people.
And I think about all the things most people don't think about. And I always tell them there's a privilege in you not thinking about that.
Yeah,
Because
and I love
I am
that
thinking
because
about it.
we create this neurodivergent group,
Yeah.
right? And I tell you the excitement and the energy that really came out of knowing that there was a place
Mm.
for those conversations.
Yeah.
I was like, this is probably one of the best groups we ever had, simply because there's so many people who are silently, really navigating the workplace with these types of challenges and really are not comfortable with talking about them.
And if you add in the intersectionality of them being Black and
Yep.
a woman, they're
Hmm.
definitely not going to talk about it unless there is a curated safe space for them to come
I
and
know.
say,
Love it.
yes, I'm struggling in this area. And they don't often see like anxiety. You can struggle with anxiety and still go to work every day and produce
Hmm.
well, but it costs you something
It
to
will
go and
cost.
produce that well with that level of anxiety. So,
Yep.
how do we create spaces where you can relieve some of that pressure and you don't have to function like that and then
Yeah.
go home depleted? Because if you're a wife and a mom or, a partner, a daughter, right? If you have
Hmm.
aging parents, right? We play all these different roles all of our lives. So to
All of
come
it.
home depleted, that's not good either. And there has
Yeah.
to be a balance somewhere.
So Sunita says, yes, I'm left-handed, and oh yes, it's a fact. I love that. I absolutely love that. So, and I love that we're having this conversation around this. But let's now move and segue into the next question, which is, what are some of the career moments that you've had that have shaped you? And I want our audience to think about this too, because we all have had those moments in our career. I remember there was a couple of weeks ago I did a webinar on getting clear on your career goals. And I talked about what are some of your oh hell no's, right? So oh hell no's, I'm not going to deal with that at work, right? But when
Love
we're
it.
thinking about these moments that shaped you, it could be a positive experience or
Uh-huh.
even a negative, because let's just keep it, transparent and honest here, because we have some on both. But what for you has been a career moment that really shaped you? as a professional?
I have two that jump out of my brain. So I'll try to make the first one quick because I think the second one is probably the most impactful one.
Okay.
I had the opportunity to study overseas. So I went to go work in Guangzhou, China, which is about 8 hours south of Beijing. And I did that at 22 years old by myself. I graduated, jumped on a plane, and like got to go study another culture.
Look at you.
That was very like eye-opening. It was so much fun. I would say it was scary, but I think at 22, nothing's really scary, right? You're indestructible. You're like, man, life. But it was fascinating to learn a completely different culture. There is no assimilation. Like it is just these are the customs, which I thought was really good. They didn't
Yeah.
need you to assimilate. They just needed you to understand there's a custom to doing things. And so me having to learn that every meal that we eat at dinner time is 13 servings of food and like you just eat a little bit off of every plate, not eat to get full kind of thing, that you have to wash your dishes and your chopsticks and wood tea. Like there are just things that stick with me forever. And I love talking about them because they welcomed me into their culture. Although I
Nice.
stuck out like a sore thumb because I'm tall and I'm black and I have braids and they're like, who are you? So that one was fun because I was young and I think it really got me to understand that the world is bigger than black and white, which is what we see a lot in the
Yes.
US.
Yes.
Coming back home, I got fired at 26 or something like that. I don't even remember. But I got fired from a job and I had worked so hard to become a director. I think I was 26, maybe 27. Realized that I was not yet ready to be a director and they did too. And so I got fired on a Monday at 3 o'clock. I'll never forget this. Mondays are my favorite day. I called my best friend. I was sobbing and I was like, I'm not even crying because I'm sad. I'm crying because I'm kind of relieved. Like
Yeah.
this was not for me. I also realized that as a Black woman in a place, because I lived at this point, I was in Texas and I was in South
Mhm.
Texas. So I was
Mm.
assuming, oh, Mexicans, we're brown, we're all brown people, we're going to be in here. No, ma'am, I'm still Black.
Yeah.
No. And so understand, I did not fully grasp that culture up front. I think there were areas where I was very much so welcomed in, and there were other areas where there is a colorism in Mexico, like it is anywhere. So I look like I should be less than, but I was younger than everyone that I was supervising, and I had 71 staff and two campuses. I
Wow.
had a lot, and so getting fired for me was like, okay. Packed up all my stuff, ended up getting an opportunity to go work in San Antonio, and that's an entire miracle story. But I had $34 in my bank account when I got fired because mismanaging money was what I did every month as a young person. I packed up my car. I sold everything I had in my apartment, moved to San Antonio. I had a woman offer me her fourth bedroom. And so I
Wow.
lived with a random woman I met for 2 hours at an elevator. I lived with her for 3 years. I took a step back out of leadership to go and relearn the field that I was getting into and learn it from the aspect of not having to lead, even though that didn't last long because I ended up standing up their honors college, coaching JUCO volleyball, and teaching a class all at the same time. So although I wasn't a director, I was still very busy. But getting fired allowed me to take a step back and pivot. What do I actually value? What do I need to learn? What skills do I need to hone in on?
Love it.
Titles are not always everything. Yes, it came with a little bit more money, but it's not like that money felt any different than any other money because I was a bad steward. So being able to take a step back and learn helped and live with this woman helped me to learn how to be a better steward over my money. So it offered me so many different things in my life. It gave me the relief of not having to pay rent and all these different things. Like every bill was not on my head. She literally let me live there rent free, which is crazy. But she allowed me to do that. She taught me about my finances. She coached me because she was a director. And I saw her come home and do work until 10, 11 o'clock at night and then get back up and be at work at 7:30 in the morning. And I said, I don't want to do that. Like, that's not my thing.
Like, I don't want to do that. Yeah.
I don't want to do that at all. And so
Mhm.
realizing when we start talking about, okay, so now I make this shift and you get into corporate, these are my hell no's. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not in this work home and doing it at 10.
Yeah,
I tell
you
you
know
all the
me.
time,
Yeah.
there is no such thing as a DEI emergency. If it's an emergency, you call the police. You're not calling me. We have a PR team. Like it's not my job.
Right.
And they would laugh and then go, no, that makes sense. And I'm like, exactly. When I go home, I will see y'all tomorrow. Like
I love it. I absolutely love it. This is what elevating conversations are all about, is really just digging in and pulling out those things that really shape who we are as Black career women, and the pieces of our journey when it comes to striving for success that sometimes we don't always talk about, right?
Mhm.
And that's what's amazing about this, because um, when I think about segments of my journey, I'm thinking like with you, I'm like, oh my gosh, man, it's so nice to hear that even in your own space that similar but different, but
Yeah,
it's the tenacity, the drive that you had, right? You were gonna push through all of that and say, I'm gonna be successful no matter what
exactly.
obstacle that I'm facing, and I love that. I'm
And
gonna
at that time, I didn't have a definition of success. I think I just wanted to not feel failure.
yeah, and
And
that's
so
okay.
I had to learn, well,
Yeah.
what does success actually look like? And it's changed
Mhm.
for me a couple times over the last few years because we went through COVID. So the pandemic really made us stop and think about, what does success mean? And then as I continue to grow older and you start talking about, okay, marriage, children,
Yeah.
success will start to look different. And I'm okay with it now taking different shapes in different seasons.
I love that. And that's the one thing about life. It will change. So you have to,
Mhm.
one of the skill sets you need to have is being able to be adaptable. And that
Yep.
if you don't have it, you need to consider that. Let's share some of these comments. Tiffany English says, "This is definitely me today. I just arrived at home and I'm depleted. I spent the
Ooh.
day being invisible where it matters."
Ooh.
Hmm. Yeah.
Ooh.
Take some time for you. Some self
Yeah,
care.
we are lifting you up. That is rough.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Adia says, wow, that's amazing. Nicole says, what an amazing opportunity to live abroad. Crystal says, she says, I never said no when asked, can I help out doing someone's job? I
Mm,
did it just because I like to pitch in and help, but it gave me the tools to be well-rounded in my profession. And I never had a problem getting a job. That was a game changer for my career and set me apart from a lot of other candidates. So good for
yep.
you, Crystal. I
Yes.
love that. I love that. And then I think it sounds like too that she has some discernment to know if someone will try to take advantage of that. Because you gotta be careful with that, specifically
Yes.
if the higher up you go. That might end up can being a little bit of a challenge too sometimes. I love that. All right. We have a LinkedIn user that says from West Texas, it's very hard for Black women.
Yes. Listen. Hey. Just yes.
Okay. Amber says, wow, this is an amazing testimony of having to restart and pivot at any age and stage. Thank you for sharing. You are
Absolutely.
so welcome, Amber. Shafara says, wow, this is an amazing story. Makiba says, made you more
Yeah, girl,
humble.
come on. Humble the mess out of me. Do you hear me? Being fired is never what you want to talk about, but I've gotten okay with it. I think it took me some time, because of course you feel shame, right? You're taught to be
Mhm.
successful, especially as Black women. We were probably taught 2 times better, if not 3 or 4 times better
Yeah,
than your
absolutely.
counterpart, right?
Absolutely.
And so to have to call my dad, who's one of my biggest supporters, and say, hey, I got fired, my daddy said, okay, girl, come home. Like, it was very regular, like, okay. And so I got fired on a Monday. That woman, her name is Tracy, she texted me on Tuesday morning. When I say God moved quickly, it was not 24 hours later. She texted me and said, I have a fourth bedroom and you're more than welcome to come stay in it. By Sunday, I was at her house.
Yeah, that's that protection. That's that
Listen, my daddy
protection.
said, who is this woman? Send me her information.
Nicole says, what feels like an obstacle is an opportunity. And
Yes.
Makiba says, taking those lemons and making lemonade with it. Love it.
Mhm.
She got to push you through that lemon out there. Thank
Yes.
you, lemon. Victoria says, thank you for talking about your pivot strategy. And Victoria says, I've been trying to figure out how to shift. Thank you for confirming my gut
There
feeling.
we go. Come
This is
on.
what it's all about. This is what it's all about. I
Yes.
love it. Sunita says, I definitely know about being taken advantage of as a skilled Black sister. I am trying to find less ways that take away from my professional liking. Mm,
Mm.
yeah. Yep. There's a webinar that we do called Managing Workplace Politics and Culture, and we talk about the different characters in the workplace. And we
Yeah.
call them characters because that's what they act like. Okay. And so, and I think it's we have to identify, those people, and also try to identify their intentions. Don't you
Yeah.
agree?
I would agree. That and boundaries. Like, what are
Mhm.
you willing to negotiate?
Yep.
And what is a definite hard and fast, right? So being able to say, no, I'm not doing that. And I'm not doing that, baby, because I either don't know how, or that's really not my job. We have someone else that can do it, and you're pulling me in for what seems like no reason. So that becomes their intention.
Yeah.
Or is it, I'm willing to negotiate. I wouldn't have done this on any other day, but hey, we're down staff, so let me jump in and be a team player. I think both of those can work in that space, but that's
And
definitely
I would also say too, knowing yourself, Sunita, and knowing your oh hell knows, right? Like, oh hell no, this is not happening. You
yes,
have to identify what those boundaries, what those deal breakers are for you,
yeah,
because that's going to help you to be able to set those boundaries as well.
yeah.
When you understand what those are. All right, McKean says, she's laughing. She said, dads will do that with their daughters. God love them. Girl, come home when something bad happens.
Every time to this day, he'd be like, "Girl, it's okay. Like, come
Just
on."
go home. I love that. All right. Aldia says, wonderful dad. So happy for you. And Victoria says, higher ed is no joke.
Girl,
Yeah.
not for the faint of heart.
I would have to agree. And for me, it would be like, do you want to come work at a higher ed? That would be my oh hell no.
So here's the thing. I love it. It still has my heart because my master's is in higher education. Like that, I love it. I love the interworkings of a college.
Mm-hmm.
I think because it's so rigid, funding sources mean that my KPIs can only look a certain kind of way. And we're always about 10 years behind business. So as business is adapting to AI, we're still trying to publicize and put out publications around how do you even cite AI? Like it
Oh,
becomes so
yeah.
far behind
Mm-hmm.
that we feel like we're never really catching up. And then with the next generation coming in, they have all these creative ideas. And this is the generation that's like working on weekends, working after 3 o'clock, hybrid. Like they're very much like, this is not what we want. They're entering into our workforce. We have to
Yeah.
prepare them, and we're preparing them slowly. And that
Yeah.
I think is what makes
That's
tiresome.
Yeah, I think that's unfortunate. And I think you also have to know who you are going into the higher ed, because if you're in a creative, that may not be the place for you. If you're creative, if you are
Yeah.
someone who likes to, like for me, I love being in the ideation stages and creating, offering up solutions to certain problems and things like that. I'm like, no, y'all move too slow for me. I gotta go.
Yep.
Tiffany says they sure are characters, especially the ones you see who see potential before you do.
Girl, you better come on now. But this is good. So I would definitely say get involved with BCWN because what Sherry's doing is very important to our community. You have to know you. And you have to know what you're good at. And there are people who are going to see your potential, but the moment they keep tapping you for the same thing, you like, I must be good at this. Like I need to go in
Yeah.
and hone in that skill. And so I'm very open to like transparent conversation. I have them all the time with anyone. I tell all the time, you cannot hurt my feelings. I have thick skin. Again, all my family's from Boston. They cuss every other word. Like it's okay. You're not gonna bother me.
You
I
have to
promise
really
you.
know yourself, right? I think when you have to know your professional self, what your core values are, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. And I think I always talk about this all the time, and you've heard me say this when we talked about it on your podcast, is that you can only manage a weakness, you cannot master it. And I
Yes.
think sometimes we try to spend too much time on mastering a weakness and not focusing on mastering our strengths and honing that into a craft that can bring us career fulfillment.
Yes.
And focusing on, let me put my gifts and talents here and focus and highlight that and make and become successful within using these talents and skills. So I think we need to do more of that. Sunita says, absolutely. Those who have you do it because they don't want to say I can't to the boss or want the credit to the boss and never saying, actually, I know I can't stand the credit. Yeah.
Girl.
Yeah.
Girl.
That's my oh hell no, is that he's trying to steal credit for what I work. Yeah, that's gonna be my oh hell no. We're not doing that.
That's actually not mine. I don't
Is
care.
it?
I'll be
Yeah,
like,
I'm not.
no, I'll be
Yeah.
like, I don't really, did it get done? People assume I love the front. I'm like, I'm good in
I
the back.
love that about you. Now you make me feel bad, but oh well. You're not
No,
taking you're
we
not
know
taking credit for my
ourselves.
work.
We know ourselves.
Mhm.
For me, that is one level of politic, and I'm not gonna do. But there are things that I will hang my hat on where I'm like,
Yeah,
nope, I'm not giving up on this one. And typically because I don't fight some of the other stuff,
yeah,
when I do, they're usually like, okay, like
yeah.
she must really care. There's something there. So I try to negotiate that as much as possible. But that really does take a lot of self-awareness. What am I
It
willing
really
to fight
does.
for
And I
and what am
think
I
for
not?
me, where it comes from for me is more of I'm a natural collaborator.
Yeah,
So I'm
same.
gonna work with people. I will I'll help with the ideas and let's bring it to life. But if it's me solo working on this, where I gotta go from A to Z by myself, no, you're not. I'll be
Yeah.
if you think you're gonna take credit for this, if I'm on my
Agree
own, but
with.
it's a collective project, of course, we'll have make sure everybody kind of it was a collective, accomplishment from everyone. But I
Yeah.
think for me, that's what where that oh hell no comes in, especially if I have to do that on my own. Sunita
Yeah.
says, oh, she says, oh, oh hell no, yes. Sherry says, characters trying to make me feel less than when I know I'm more than, smarter than, and stronger than. Hashtag strong, smart Black women. Yes, I love this.
That's
And
good.
stay true to it, Sherry. You know who you are, because right now they know that you're bringing something to the table that they can't do well, and so that can give you a leverage in terms of visibility, projects, whatever, even relationships. So stay true to that, but make sure you position yourself and be intentional
Yeah.
about the relationship building. Don't you agree with that?
100%. 100%. And I always tell people, get good mentors. I love this group because you have the mentoring summit. You have two of them that you do in person. I think maybe one virtual still. There are so many women who would love to love on you, who would love to guide you and coach you and work with you so that you do know what those things are and you are okay with talking through with your boundaries before you go and put them out into the world and you talk about what your oh hell knows are. Like, you need people that have your back so that you feel supported, even if in that room you don't feel
Yeah.
supported. You walk out of that room and you call your tribe and you say, hey, I just need y'all to support me in this. And those
Mhm.
people are there to lift you up. And your mentor is there to essentially walk you through when you're right and when you're wrong.
Yeah.
You have to give them the
Great
permission to
advice.
correct you.
Great advice. Great advice. Amanda says, yes, working in higher ed as a director has its rewards and challenges, but it's the people and the processes that are the deal breakers.
Yes, it is. Every time.
We have a question by Safara. She says, I'm a Gen X with millennial daughters and a Gen Z teen. I'm finding being managed by a boomer is extremely challenging because I can adapt easily with the other generations, yet the boomer mindset is challenging to navigate as a team. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
That's,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's that whole, multicultural, multi-generational workplaces, which is what we really work in now, right? From
Yep.
boomer to that Gen Z. And so the more you can understand what a boomer's mentality is when it comes to the workplace, it makes it a little bit easier. And I think that's a training that should be. Don't you agree? There should be
We
a
do.
training
We've
around
done the training around multi-generational workplaces
that.
because they
Mm-hmm.
are interesting to
Yeah.
navigate. They're also interesting depending on who's in leadership, which is typically our
Oh,
boomers at this point.
yes. And
Um,
I think we all are familiar with the boomer work style.
yeah,
That
and having to talk through, like, let's negotiate, right? We have to negotiate some space. And I think for some of our boomers, some of them are like, we got to catch on, we got to do this because we need a workforce. There are other people who are holding true and fast to what they've always known. But we have a statistic out now that says by 2034, we will have more people in retirement than we have in the workforce. So our boomers are on their way out. And what I've been encouraging everyone to do is now you got to sit at their feet. Like, you got to learn what they know because they're not going to be in the workforce much longer. We don't
yeah,
have to do it the way that they do it, but we do need to know what they know because
yeah,
all that
that's
knowledge is
true.
going into retirement.
And we do need to know what they know, but I think that for me, it's like I'm gonna take bits and pieces of
Yes,
that because some of that is so ancient, and we're not working that way no more.
correct.
We're not working like that now. We're
Correct.
not. I need to add 10 more years to my life, not take away from it. And if you're working as a boomer, you may be minus and subtracting some years off your life,
Yeah.
and that's real talk
And
because of
then
the
you
way
think of
they work, because of the
think
way
of
they.
the advocacy. They're trying to push the retirement age to 72. now. Did y'all see that? So like you start again, where I live in advocacy, like, no, let's have this conversation. We are not working, we're not living to work, right?
Yeah.
We're working to live. Like I want to go out and explore the world and do all these different things. And so I should be able to do that and have a career as well and be successful in both.
Yep, I agree with that. So Makita says she was laughing because she said, I'm like Ashley. She said, did it get done? Because while you're looking to give yourself the credit, I'm looking at my options. Don't give me the credit if you want to. Girl, I love that, but I'll be dang. Okay, if I'm working from A to Z on this project by myself with somebody else getting the credit, it is not happening. That's gonna be my oh hell no to the end.
I'm with you, Makita.
Yeah, you're not gonna do that. If this is me from A to Z and no one else is involved, no, we don't get to take credit for that. We just don't.
Said you was not with me shooting in the gym. That's not what happened.
No, you didn't collaborate. You didn't offer up no insight. You didn't go nothing.
Yeah,
zero effort. You get no credit. Okay.
I love this.
There's a LinkedIn user says, I find it offensive when people steal your work and try to take credit for your intellectual property. Wow. Now that is a oh hell no for me. It's like giving away our power and the ultimate disrespect. Don't give away what you created. And that's true. And thank you for that LinkedIn user, because that's what I mean. Don't, I'm not going to sit up here and create this entire thing from A to Z with no input, no collaboration effort, or anything. And I have to find my own resources to make it happen and all of that. And then I don't get credit for that. No.
Yeah. Yes, I agree with this 100%.
Yeah, that's the wait to exhale moment with the car in the back with the fire. That's what that would be for me.
I got it. That is good.
Tawana says, I'm a consultant for business owners and nonprofits because I want to have creative control. I really don't like to be micromanaged or held to someone's goals when I have no control over how to achieve it. I love that you know that about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think being micromanaged to me does nothing. I don't understand why people do that. But I do. I always talk about building trust when I get into jobs, right? Like I will do it. Let me do it the way that I want to do it. And if I don't do it right, then let's make corrections. Yeah. Or in the interim, let's have a lot of conversations. Once you see that I know what I'm doing, will you take my training wheels off, please? Because I got this. And that's worked for me. It may not work for you, but that's how I start a lot of my conversations. I'm very upfront about the desires I have for a manager. When people say, well, what kind of manager do you want or whatever? And I'm not like, oh, well, I like creative freedom. No, I don't need you to talk to me every day or every week. I will check in with you when I need to check in with you. Now, if you want to talk to me, okay. But I do not need a weekly meeting. I don't need that. And people are usually like, oh, okay. And I'm like, if we need them to get started for the first couple months, great. But I promise you, I will give you everything that you are looking for. I have my job description. I know what our KPIs are. Let me do my job.
Yeah, it's almost as if, I'll let you know when I need some sort of level of support or what I need from you, or I'll give you an update on, this project or what you need. So I agree with that wholeheartedly. When it comes to, I don't need a one-on-one every week. What are we going to talk about? There probably in the last 5 days, working days, there probably hasn't been a significant change depending on what the project is.
Exactly.
So I agree with that too. I agree with that a lot. Crystal says she agreed micromanaging is hard no for her too. Mm-hmm. It's all about knowing what what your boundaries are, which is hugely important. She says, real talk, I'm trying to be on the other side of losing time in life. Yeah, then nobody's trying to work ourselves into the grave.
Yes.
Honestly. All right. So last question I have for you.
Okay.
And what do you want Black career women? Because here's the thing. I always say that whether we're entry level, mid-career, celebrity, whatever we are as Black females, we're all Black career women, regardless of what we do, whether we're in the entrepreneur space or if we're, professional women. What do you want them to know about the journey towards success?
That it is not a journey that should be taken lightly. We often are running to the next thing, like I call it a dopamine hit, the next accolade of some sort. But there is beauty in taking your time on this journey and really figuring out what success looks like for you in every season of your life. whether you desire to have a partner forever or not, or you desire to have children or not, or you want to live abroad or work virtually, whatever those things are, you have to know you so well that no one else can tell you, who you are.
Mm-hmm.
But you also want to perfect your craft. And so being on this journey is not sprinting through it. There is a beauty in taking your time and gaining mentors and having people that you can have conversations with, and also being okay with being wrong. How I thought 5 years ago about some things and what I think about them now are completely different. No, with age does not come wisdom, and no, with time does not come wisdom. With studying comes wisdom. Like, you need to be with wise people.
Right.
And so if you know that you have an area that you just can't stop thinking about, go and sit up under someone, like learn as much as you possibly can. I think Malcolm Gladwell talks about your 10,000 hours. Some people agree with that and some people don't, but there is a beauty to understanding that you have to put in work to be able to be the master of your craft. And as you
Yeah,
do
yeah.
that, there is a life happening outside of your career as well as the life happening in your career. So how do you walk on this journey very intentionally, and not having a haphazard journey? But even if it's a zigzag, knowing that that's what you needed at that point in life. If you need to take a step back, take the step back. If you want to go higher and you want to stretch yourself, do that. If you want to have a bi career where you're an entrepreneur and a full time career person, do that. But you have to know yourself and what you can handle. And so I would say take time on the journey, understand yourself,
Mhm.
learn your craft, master your craft. And like you say all the time, you just manage those weaknesses. We're not here to perfect those
Mhm.
things, just manage those.
Yeah,
Um,
you can't master those. You can only
yeah.
manage them. Yeah.
And I'll say what you said to me because I have it written down now and I will have it forever. You do not need validation.
Mm-mm. You know,
That
I'm always
blessed
talking
my
about
whole
that.
heart. You do not need validation.
Mm-mm.
And I will live with that forever. I say it. I've said it for the whole week. I'm like, listen, Sherry done told me I don't need validation. So
Mm-mm.
that's how I'm showing up in these spaces now as I think about, okay, what does the next 5 years of my journey look like? Maybe it's the next 3 years of my journey look like. I don't need validation for what I'm doing. So that
No,
really helps.
no, because it's given, and we talked about that. Give it's because it's in here.
Yeah.
You just have to be know who you are to show up and be brave enough to allow yourself to explore,
Yes.
because it more than likely instinctively it is a way for you to allow for those other hidden gifts and talents that that was there to come out,
Yeah.
and you won't know until you take that chance,
Yeah.
or just or at least get clear about that. I think self awareness, learning who you are on the journey is always the first step. Even when you're creating a shift of some kind, you need to kind of do a self evaluation of where you are now. I
Yeah.
always say who you are at 20 is not who you'll be at 30. There'll probably still be some same characteristics there, but how you view the world and how you approach what you want is going to shift and change.
Exactly.
And that same thing's going to happen when you go 30, those decades. It changes. It just
Yeah.
changes. So
Yeah.
you have to be aware of what is it going to take for me to adapt and to change to those shifts, and what's in me now, what calling in me now should I be shifting into.
Yeah.
And yours, and then to me, when I hear about your journey, it's you were intuitive the entire time, so you were in tune. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You were in tune with it the entire time. And some people have these opportunities and completely overlook it because they're looking at these outside external ways. That's why I say if you're looking for validation, you may miss it.
Yeah. Yes. Because no one's gonna give it to you but you.
Mm-hmm.
No
Yeah,
one gave it to me but me. I had people saying, like, man, I feel like you could do more. Man, I feel like you could do more. And I'm like, I could do more. You know what I mean? Like, I could do
yeah,
more. But what the more was what I had to figure out. Because people will tell you that all the time. You can do more. What does that look like? But instead
yeah.
of asking that question outwardly, I had to ask myself internally, what does that
Inwardly,
look
yeah. What does that look like? And
like?
that's
Yeah.
where being able to know your professional self, and that what that means is knowing your core values, knowing what your deal breakers are, understanding what your triggers are,
Yeah.
understanding what your motivators are, what are some of the things that will keep you from moving forward, and two, what is your leadership style, what is your communication style. All of these different things are comprised of you understanding, and they will change and shift as you develop as a professional.
Yes.
and the
Yeah.
higher you go, the more complex it becomes. And
Yep.
so, yeah, I think this is good. I know we got a couple more we'll share because then we can wrap it up.
Okay.
LinkedIn user says lots of organizations follow a weekly check-in process to follow up and stay aligned. It's really just a matter of managing your boss and setting expectations. While it may seem like micromanaging, I found once you demonstrate your organizational effectiveness, the check-ins will be quick and less frequent.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I do. And it also depends on what type of leader, what manager, who you're reporting to as well, right? Because they may
Yeah.
not need that much. Yeah. So I like this. Very good point. But you have to
And
know.
knowing that there are people on the other side of the spectrum, like I don't
Yeah.
necessarily need a micromanager, but I do work with someone who needs a more weekly, steady kind of, for them, that's how they feel leveled. Like, wait, am I doing a good job? Am I doing what you want me to do? And a lot of them, I think, is like an insurance policy. Like, am I good? Am I not good? Where I may not possess that. Also understanding that when you get to certain levels of leadership, you have to be able to do both. You will
Yes.
have people who want you to micromanage them or check in with you weekly. And you will have people who are like, if I talk to you every 3 months, I'm good. It's like,
Yeah.
and being able to be both as a boss or a manager is extremely important to keeping an organization afloat because everyone's not
Mhm.
all one way.
And Sanina says, "Wow, my uncle said you don't need to explain anything you decide to do with your life," which is right. And
Yeah.
I do want to say one thing before we do wrap up about managers. Not every, I know sometimes people think about leadership is the way they're supposed to go on this trajectory of moving upward, right? But not everybody is meant to be a leader or a
Nope.
manager. And
Nope.
some people don't like managing other people. So
Nope.
when you're thinking about career success and your trajectory, do not think that becoming a leader or a manager is always the track you're supposed to be on,
That's good.
because
That's
that's not,
good.
and people kind of get caught in that, and they're not understanding I may not be a good manager. I may have leadership ability, but I still may not be good at managing people.
Yeah.
So those are things you have to discover about yourself as well. Just kind of want to give you some thoughts around that, because that's, there's other ways to be successful and get to that track, and it's not always becoming a leader is the trajectory that you need to take.
Yeah. I would agree with that 100%. And if
All
you
right.
do get put into those roles, get training. Like, ask for training. How do I manage a staff? What does that look like?
Yeah,
Get that
and try
training.
to do it before you get the role.
Yes, that would be good.
You gotta do your work before you get there, or might be a lot more challenging than what you expect if you try to do it. If you try to, be a manager and then get the training at the same time. Not that you
Yeah.
can't accomplish it, but can make it a little bit more challenging.
Yeah.
All right. Any last words you want to share with our you know what? One question I do have before we wrap up. What does being a Black career woman mean to you? What does being a Black career woman mean to you?
It means that at any point in my life, I could be a trailblazer, walking a path that has been uncharted. That although it may get hard, it may get dark, I may get weary, that I know that there are people that are going to come behind me. And my entire goal in this world is to make it just a little bit easier for those who are going to walk this path. Um, it means being a sister to people I may never meet. It means being a cheerleader to people I may never meet in real life. And it means being very much so honest, authentic, and transparent in who I am as a person, so that another Black girl does not have to walk in and question whether she should wear her braids or her nose ring or her red lipstick, because I'm tired of that conversation. I think people should walk into every room being how they want to be and as professional as they want to be and not have to assimilate. I want you to be your full self. And so when I walk into rooms, I walk in my full self and I do not explain it. And so that for
I
me
love
is
that.
being a Black career woman every single day.
I love it. I love it. Crystal Jones said, "Amen and thank you." I know, amen. Right? I know. I love it. Thank you so much. This has been
Yes, of
amazing
course.
conversation, Ashley. And this is where you all can find Ashley. I know she has it in her signage right now, but I'm going to put it up here. Hey,
Yeah.
Ashley, did I miss
Yeah,
something?
that's right.
Okay,
No,
I got
that's
it.
right.
Okay,
Hey,
that's right.
Ashley.
Okay,
Hey.
good. I'm going to make sure I
Yeah.
get it right. You can find her. I'll tell her. We'll let you tell them where they can find you.
So Instagram and TikTok are Hey Ashley Hey. LinkedIn is just my first and last name, Ashley Dubois. And I do also host a podcast, which you will find on my Instagram. And so just wanting to be connected. I'm a big motivator. So if you jump on Instagram, come on and get this work. I'm going to be motivating you Monday morning, honey, because that's my thing. But just loving
I will
conversation.
tell you, she gives me life. I watch all the time. I'm always like heart, 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 heart. And she is so motivating and so inspiring. So please do follow her because her nuggets are just, I mean, the energy that she just exhibits when she is sharing and her motivation is just amazing. She's such a light. Love Ashley to death. So I'm so glad you came on to Elevating Conversations. And then again, too, for those of you who are in Cincinnati, Ashley is going to be coming back again and being a mentor at our upcoming Mentor Summit. So I just want to share that. I just want to share that little sneak peek. But you all know where to find her. Stay connected with her. And I want to leave you with this. The life God gave you is larger than the life you've been living, which means God gives us all special gifts and talents. And it's our job to discover what those are and use those to work in our purpose. Yeah. So I hope you all have an amazing Tuesday night and an amazing rest of your work week. And we will see you on next month's Elevating Conversation. Bye, everyone.
Bye.